The Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, everyone's single favorite time of year, mock draft, NFL 2019. Prepare to be triggered if we say something bad about your team, and then you start to cry about it. Just leave all that stuff in the comment section. Also, if you do go into the comment section, here's what you do if you want to get into a draw for $20 DK. Smash the like button for the episode. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me who, best case scenario, that your favorite team ends up with in the first round of the NFL draft in 2019. Also, if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, go to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, DraftKings handle, something nice about the show. Nothing negative. Those aren't going to win. Trust me. Something nice about the show, and you'll be in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Winners announced on next Monday's show. All right, let's get into this. From Roto World, joining me, the college fantasy sports writer of the year, it's Thor Nystrom. And what's going on, my man? Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be here, Pat.
How many mock drafts have you run through so far?
More than I can count.
And
several.
And everything's up on Roto World right now?
Yeah, and all my position deep dives. And my final mock draft will be up on Wednesday. And top 400 will be up on Sunday, I think. So yeah, we're just rolling through, man.
I mean, top 400 sounds like an awful lot of coverage. Also joining us on the line from Roto Experts and Daily Roto, the host of the TakeCast podcast. Go subscribe to that too. It's Davis Mattek. Davis, how many hot takes about the draft do you think you have?
I mean, I might have more than Thor. He's watched a lot more like day 3 offensive linemen than I have. So my takes are they're going to be pretty hot when it comes to the offensive skill position players because I feel pretty strongly about most of those guys.
All right, so we'll get into this, and the way that we're doing this mock draft is Davis is going to make a case, Thor's going to make the case. I don't know anything about these college guys, so I'll just be the decider of who the team is actually going to draft, and then we'll move on from there. Obviously, once a player is selected, they cannot be taken again. It's not one of these stupid like fantasy drafts where everyone can get Kyler Murray. It's not going to work out that way. So let's get to the clock right away. Thor will put you on. Arizona has the first of their 10 picks right now. And I guess the question is, are they going to take a quarterback or not?
Yeah, I mean, we have to go chalk with this, right? Like, we've read the tea leaves now. It just seems obvious that this is going to happen. I'll be taking Kyler Murray, the quarterback out of Oklahoma. I don't agree with this pick, just as I didn't agree with the head coach they hired, and just like I don't agree with selling low on Josh Rosen, but I think that's what the pick is going to be. So we'll lock it in.
Davis, do you agree that this is where Kyler Murray ends up landing?
I do agree, and I disagree with Thor. I like the Cliff Kingsbury hire, and I like the pick of Kyler Murray. I think it's going to be I think it's going to portend good things for the Arizona Cardinals organization, both of those personnel decisions.
So, Thor, why down on Murray and just this head coaching hire to begin with?
Well, Cliff Kingsbury is a guy who failed for 6 straight years at his alma mater. I mean, this is a guy who's loved in Lubbock. After 6 years, they didn't have a choice but to fire him. And then he didn't get another FBS offer. He didn't even get another G5 head coaching offer, accepted the USC offensive coordinator spot. The reason he's the head coach of Arizona right now is because he looks like Ryan Gosling. It has absolutely nothing to do with his football acumen. If it did, they would have hired the guy that made him, Mike Leach. So that's on that account. As far as Kyler, you already got a quarterback. I mean, Arizona's got this Swiss cheese roster. They have needs everywhere. They took a quarterback last year, a good quarterback in Josh Rosen, who was not in a position to succeed, had no offensive line. And, of course, that's what they're going to put Kyler behind right now. I just think it's an enormous mistake, and it's a really bad example of value arbitrage the other way. I just think they're punting on last year's first-round pick. They're going to get maybe a second for him, maybe a mid-rounder next year. And then you're drafting a guy at 1 who has never existed in the NFL before and who could just leave for baseball again in 3 or 4 years if he fails early. So I'm just really down on the pick. I'm down on the coaching hire. I'm down on the whole organization, I guess.
So, Davis, if Cliff Kingsbury didn't look like, as Thor pointed out, Ryan Gosling, very handsome fella. I mean, you're big on millennial culture. He's big on millennial culture. Are you just projecting onto Cliff Kingsbury?
Well, I do agree with Thor that Mike Leach would have been a better hire. And I think there are a lot of reasons why Mike Leach has not gotten an NFL job. Some of them have to do with his personality. Some of them have to do with how much he likes being a college coach and how much money he would require to be an NFL coach. But I think that in general, NFL teams hiring coaches that just want to throw the ball all the time and that want to install air raid concepts is good. And I think that just being willing to throw the ball all the time is going to make teams better in the NFL, because if you're not wasting plays running the ball, it's going to be a lot easier to win games. And it's going to be a lot easier to score points. And the thing that I disagree most with Thor, I guess, is that I do think Kyler is basically a generational talent at the quarterback position. I think his ceiling as an NFL player is higher than any ceiling that Josh Rosen could ever hope to get to. Even though I do like Josh Rosen, I think that Rosen, if he gets traded, I think he could have, a pretty good NFL career. I just think that Kyler is ceiling is much better.
Thor, if we go down and they have these 10 picks, they have 9 after this. Obviously, they're at the top of most rounds, plus the additional ones that they've acquired. What do they have to do with the rest of this draft to make sure that Kyler Murray can stay upright? Is it just draft offensive linemen?
I don't think they can. I mean, that's the issue. Again, you're going to trade Rosen. You're in this draft, you're probably going to get a second round pick at most. And then you have all these other needs, offensive line, defensive line, receiver, edge, cornerback, linebacker, tight end. You could even use some at safety. The only two positions the Arizona Cardinals absolutely do not need help at is quarterback and running back. And of course, they're going to use the first overall pick, which you get once every 20 years or so, on a quarterback.
All right, Davis, San Francisco on the clock at number 2, the first of their 6 picks. They could use an impact receiver, but this is probably way too high for this. So where do the Niners look with the second overall pick?
There's not going to be any debate on this one. I assume the San Francisco 49ers are going to take Nick Bosa from Ohio State. He is the consensus best edge in this class. I mean, maybe there would be an argument for them to take Quinnen Williams, Ed Oliver, or Rashawn Gary here. But if Kyler goes 1, I'm pretty certain Nick Bosa is going to go number 2 to San Francisco.
Thor, do you agree with Davis or disagree?
I agree with Davis here. Yeah, it's Bosa. And I can't argue with it too much. I maybe slightly prefer Josh Allen, just in terms of my rankings, but I completely understand why you would prefer Bosa instead. So yeah, I think that this is absolutely the pick.
Well, why Josh Allen in this spot over Bosa in terms of your rankings? Is it just all the stuff that goes along with Bosa? He might hold out. Is he injured? That sort of thing?
We can maybe hold this off till the next pick because I'm going to be proposing him for the Jets. But the reason that I would prefer Allen if it was my pick is I think he can do more things, right? I think of him as, well, my comp for him was what we wanted Anthony Barr to be. Allen is basically everything that Anthony Barr is as an off-ball linebacker, which is what Barr became in the NFL. But Allen also adds to that just superb edge rushing talent. He's, in this class, just as a pure edge rusher, he'd be one of the top 2 or so. But he can also defend against the run, which is something that just happened this past season. Allen was a guy that was thinking after the 2017 season about jumping. He asked the NFL advisory board for advice. They gave him a mid-round grade, suggested he go back to school, told him to work on his run defense, told him to get bigger, told him to add more nuance to his game. And he did all 3. And his run grade, Kentucky PFF run grade just spiked through the roof this year. He can also cover a bit, but you'd never send him back there because you want him rushing the passer on passing downs. I like him a lot. I like Bosa a lot too. Don't get me wrong. I just think that, Bosa, that there's some nitpicky things there, as far as stiffness and stuff like that. But he's a very good prospect as well. I just think, with Allen, I can do way more things. I can move him around. I can play him all over the place. So that would be my tiebreaker there.
So Davis, Thor's made his case for Josh Allen at number 3. Do you think you're going to agree with that? Because when I was assessing team needs for the Jets, the problem is Cust isn't on this show, so I was going to say their biggest need is an actual quarterback, but I don't really believe that. I would just say that to trigger him, then he'd freak out for 15 minutes, and it'd be good content. But that's going to be for tomorrow's show when we talk about the Jets' schedule and how great Sam Darnold is, and then we'll just make fun of him the entire time. So is it going to be Josh Allen to the Jets at number 3?
So I do think that if the Jets don't take the player that I have them selecting, Josh Allen is one of the most likely selections. But I actually have Juwan Taylor going there as a tackle because that would allow the Jets to move Kelvin Beachum, who was their left tackle last year, to right tackle and would be replacing their worst lineman from 28, Brandon Shell. Basically, my whole philosophy is nothing matters for the Jets other than if Sam Darnold is going to be good or bad. And you give him the greatest chance of being able to become good if you give him a stud left tackle, which I think Juwan Taylor is.
What do you make of that, Thor? Do you think it's wise to continue to pad up the offense if you're the Jets, give your second-year quarterback the most help possible to make him look good, let him lead you? Or is Josh Allen just, a step above in terms of talent and you take the best player available?
A little bit of both. Philosophically, I would agree with what Davis is saying, but for me, the value just isn't there. I think, Taylor's going to be a really solid right tackle in the NFL. Maybe a guard if he can't swing it, but I think he probably will be able to swing right tackle. It's just that for me, Taylor, I would rank him around 15, 16, 17, 18 in the class. Whereas to me, Josh Allen is my number 2 player. I just think that, they're in a different tier for me, at least, as far as skill set.
Okay, so this is going to be a tough choice. I'm going to lean with talent here, Davis. I'm going against you. Josh Allen is going to be the pick to the New York Jets at number 3. So we move on to Oakland. Davis, you're up here. This is the first of 8 picks for Oakland, one of 3 inside the first round. They could use some help at a lot of places. They probably don't need a receiver at this point, but outside of that, where are we going?
They are taking Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle from Alabama. He is one of the most destructive players I've ever watched. And I actually am valuing destructive interior players sort of much more after watching how the Rams developed their pass rush in 2018. But getting all of that pressure from the interior with Sue and Donald really allowed them to disrupt opposing offenses when it was working. And Quinnen Williams seems to be just like one of the absolute best interior defensive line prospects we've ever seen. So he's the easy selection for me at number 4.
Thor, if you were Mike Mayock and you were on the clock at number 4, and we've seen the 3 go already, where would your pick lean here for the Raiders?
I have nothing to add. I think Davis broke that down really well. I think it's an obvious pick. I think that's one of the ones where the second you get on the clock, you've already turned the card in.
All right, so how does Quinnen Williams stack up with the rest of the interior defensive linemen in this draft? Is he a huge cut above, or is there a certain tier that 3 or 4 guys are on?
I don't know that I would say a huge cut above, but I would also agree with Davis that he's one of the better interior guys we've seen in recent years. The only reason I wouldn't say a huge cut above is just because I love Ed Oliver so much. Yeah, and so for me, Quinnen is 1-1. For me, Quinnen is the best player in this class. If I was the Cardinals, I would take Quinnen. But Ed Oliver for me is a top 5, top 6 type talent as well. So we got a couple good ones in this class for sure.
Davis, how much does Oakland having a pick at 4 and then 2 in the 20s in the first round, you think really affect what they do at the top? Do you think they are more apt to roll the dice at the top and then maybe solidify the rest of their team and build depth down below? Or what do you make of Mike Mayock as a GM here? And how much do you think Gruden is going to influence what happens?
Well, I think Gruden, if he had his druthers, he would take all offensive players with these picks. I think that he would take a wide receiver or one of the Iowa tight ends here, and then I think he would take Josh Jacobs and one of the wide receivers at 24 and 27. But I don't think that Mayock is going to let him get away with that. So I do think that it is very likely a defensive player goes to Oakland here at 4. I also think there's a decent chance that they use 24 and 27 to trade back up for a wide receiver if they think that Metcalf, or if they like AJ Brown, or if they like Hollywood Brown and they think that one of those guys is going to go. I think it's likely that they use those picks to trade up.
Doesn't that just kind of seem insane considering you signed the Gazelle, you trade for Antonio Brown, now you're drafting wide receivers too?
All of the smoke out of Oakland is that they really want Marquise Brown. It seems very likely that they want him. And I think that, I think that Tyrell Williams is a complimentary wide receiver. I don't think that the Raiders or the Chargers even ever viewed him as a legit number 2, 120 targets per year sort of guy.
All right, Tampa Bay, first of 7 picks on the clock. Thor, we'll go to you. Who's Tampa taking?
I'm going to go with Devin White here of LSU. it just seems like a really good fit. And Devin White is a prospect, just a tremendous player. He's a kid who came into college as a 260-pound running back, switched him to defense right away. Dave Aranda just got one look at him, was like, man, you're playing defense. And so he lost some weight and just became a tremendous linebacker, true sideline to sideline guy. He didn't blitz as much at LSU, playing the 3-4, obviously not on the outside. They just use him sort of sideline to sideline, cleaning everything up, use him a little bit more in coverage. I like him in coverage a little bit, but I think, in the NFL, I think we can blitz him a little bit more because I just think, per rep, if you just look at it on the tape, per snap, I think he's one of the better blitzers in this class of the off-ball class. And the other thing I would say is, in where the NFL is going and where it has gone, you have a lot of throws to the perimeter. You have a lot of, space and speed on offense. Devin White is the kind of guy that not only is he going to clean up, the aisle in terms of the run game, sideline to sideline, but he's also a guy who's going to be flying out to the perimeter. You try bubble screens and stuff like that, jailbreaks, stuff like that. And he's going to be the guy who's blowing it up. I like Devin White a lot. I think he's a modern NFL linebacker. And I think he'd be a great pick here.
Davis, it seems like Tampa almost has to go defense here, whether it's linebacker, whether it's safety, whether it's corner. Like Greedy Williams could find himself being taken 5th overall by the Bucs. Where do you see them going?
So I do agree with all of Thor's analysis of Devin White as a player. I just think that player matters less than an edge rusher. So I think it's pretty likely that Tampa Bay's favorite of Rashawn Gary or Montez Sweat goes here. I like Gary a little bit more as a player. I like the way that he gets around the edge a little bit more, though Sweat is a little bit more athletic. Their edge counterpart to Jason Pierre-Paul last year recorded only 14 hurries over the course of the season. So I think this is a pretty obvious need for them. So I have Gary over White here.
Yeah, I'm actually going to lean with you here, Davis. I'll go with Gary over White as the number 5 pick to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're seeing an awful lot of defense fly off the board here. Maybe the Giants at number 6 with one of their 12 picks in this draft. I guess the question, Davis, do they take Dwayne Haskins?
No, they don't. The most likely scenario here is that the Giants just continue to do what the Giants do. I think that they take Montez Sweat here. Josh Allen was who I had in my mock, but we already have him off the board. So we're going Montez Sweat to the Giants because they just traded away their only edge rusher in Olivier Vernon. So Montez Sweat as the second most sparky edge in this class goes off the board to the Giants here.
Thor, besides having this is like an all-time good name first round, potentially. Montez Sweat's a pretty high up there name. It may not be the best in this draft class, but it's pretty good. But do you think that really fits in? Is that too high for him? Or do the Giants just say, screw it, we're taking a quarterback. We need a quarterback. Let's take a quarterback. Or are they just too stupid to do this?
Yeah, I agree with what Davis says. I think Montez Sweat, he would probably, in terms of who we have left on the board, I think he would probably be chalk at this pick with where we are reading the tea leaves right now. Earlier this week, I was on a show in Stamford, doing the mock draft with Josh Norris and Chris Sims, and I had this pick. I ended up taking Dwayne Haskins, and the reason why it's more of a thing of trying to think about the situation from their perspective. And also the Giants are a team where in past years, we've always known who they were going to take, Conklin, Floyd last year with Barkley, there's been a lot of leaks in that organization. And this year, it seems like those have been plugged, and they, the Giants seem to have this strategy of sort of billowing smoke out. And there's a lot of mystery around this pick. Before, it seemed obvious that they were going to take Haskins like a month and a half ago. And then, the tide just changed. And then there was all these reports that Dwayne Haskins is a media creation. He's going to fall way down the board. And Giants, no. We are not interested in him at all. I know that we always tell you guys who we're going to pick in advance, but Dwayne Haskins, he's the one guy that we will categorically not consider, whatever. To me, something smells fishy there. Is Montez Sweat the guy that I would take? Absolutely. Is Montez Sweat the guy that, that could be taken? Absolutely. The reason that I took Haskins is for those reasons. I just get a really strange vibe from the Giants, and I think that they're going to do something weird. And at this point, taking Dwayne Haskins would be weird. But then, again, I agree with everything that Davis said.
All right, so let's go with Sweat for this pick, only because I want to see where this would leave. If Murray goes number 1, where does Haskins fall to in this draft? And if anyone
he falls pretty far if the Giants don't take a quarterback. It's crazy how the draft weighs out. When you're looking at scenarios, if the Giants don't take a quarterback here, the draft gets weird.
Well, is this a spot where maybe Oakland says we're going to cut ties with Derek Carr and we'll trade 2 of our picks to move up to go get him?
That would be one of the most entertaining outcomes of the draft, I think. I don't know how likely it is, but it would certainly make me laugh if it happened.
So Thor, if Haskins doesn't go here, do you think he's a good enough talent to trade up for if you were at the back end of the first round?
Yes, depending on the team. I mean, philosophically in general, it's not something I'm going to do. And the other way where my thought process would differ from most of the NFL, because my job's not on the line with this kind of stuff, is the last quarterback class was way better than this quarterback class. Next year's quarterback class is way better than this quarterback class. And so I think if it was me, I think I'm probably sitting out, and so, again, going back to what Davis was saying, if it's me and I'm Gettleman, I'm on the board, the guy fetishizes the trenches anyway. And contextually, because of the situation we're in with where the quarterback class can be way better next year, I think I'd sit on my hands for one more year. I didn't think they should have done this last year. I think they should have taken the quarterback last year. But since they didn't, now you're here. You might as well just sit on your hands again with Eli. And who knows, maybe later on in this round, we were talking about later on, how far does Haskins fall? Maybe later on in this round, they can get the quarterback. But I think if I was them, I would take Sweat. It's just that I think they're going to do something weird.
So in terms of your overall prospect rankings at quarterback, obviously there's going to be some guy that, no one really rates all that highly, somehow ends up starting, or he lights up the preseason. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, whatever happened to this guy? Like almost sort of like the Dak Prescott thing from a few years ago. There's always seems to be one of those guys every few years that just emerges. Really difficult to predict. But if you had to rank the prospects of quarterbacks of who's actually going to be good, who would it be? Who would be on that short list this year?
Are you talking about like a day 3 guy, or just in terms of
just in
overall?
Of all the quarterbacks that are in this class, who can you see actually being a capable NFL starting quarterback?
There's not many. Haskins for sure, Murray for sure. I like Daniel Jones a bit more than other people, but I wouldn't put him as a top 20 prospect, but I think he could develop into that. Will Greer, I think, is Case Keenum 2.0. He might be a little bit better than Case Keenum, but that's where he's at. And then Drew Lock, I'm lower on Lock than others, but certainly if he hits his absolute ceiling is like non-sourpuss Jay Cutler, so he could be a starter too. And then a couple guys that I like, day 3 guys that I think could potentially someday do stuff. Easton Stick is my boy from North Dakota State. He's a guy who reminds me a lot of Taysom Hill, except Stick is a better quarterback. He's got everything that Taysom has as an athlete, but he can also play the position. And then Brett Rippon would be the other guy I would toss out.
Who would you throw out, Davis, if you were going to rank these quarterbacks of who actually has a future in the NFL?
Well, the guys that I want, NFL teams that I want to succeed to get, is Will Greer, and Tyree Jackson is the other one. I actually see the Easton Stick thing. I think he's probably going to be a good NFL backup quarterback. But I think Tyree Jackson from Buffalo could actually be a starting quarterback in the right circumstances, sort of in the way that Josh Allen is a starting quarterback in the right circumstances. I think Tyree Jackson's skill set is pretty unique, and I think that a pretty innovative offensive coordinator could build an interesting offense around him.
So if we were to throw Haskins and Murray into last year's draft, Davis, where do you think that they would rate out amongst the guys that were taken?
Haskins would go 4th probably for me, and Murray would go 2nd behind Baker for me. So I don't know. Haskins would actually probably not have been a first-round draft pick if he was in the class last year, and Kyler would have gone around where Rosen went, I think, if they were in last year's class.
Thor, what do you make of that with throwing these guys back into last year's draft, how they stack up against the Allens, against the Bakers, against the Sam Darnolds of the world, the Josh Rosens?
Yeah, I mean, if you combine them into one class right now, just the guys coming out, I think I would have Haskins 5, I'd have Murray 6, and then I'd have bad Josh Allen 7.
Bad Josh Allen? I mean, the guy switching the cameras here is a Buffalo Bills fan. He doesn't need to hear that.
We took good Josh Allen at 3 for the Jets. So, yeah.
All right. Jacksonville is on the clock. The first of their 7 picks. They could use some help. Not a quarterback because they went out and they signed a quarterback, but they probably aren't going to draft a running back. At least I don't think so, but I wouldn't put it past them at this point. Who knows what they're up to? Offensive line seems like something they could do. Maybe they could get someone cheap on defense since they pay everyone all the money on defense. Thor, where do you think they go here?
I'm going TJ Hawkinson. This has been my pick since February, since before other people were, getting in on it. And I'm staying in the same camp. For me, TJ Hawkinson is the best tight end prospect to come into the NFL since Vernon Davis. I think he's absolutely worthy of a top 10 pick. He's a guy who can do everything. He's the best blocking tight end that I've ever evaluated, that I've ever seen. I went to grad school at Iowa, and so I watch every Iowa game live. TJ Hawkinson's the only guy, only non-offensive lineman, and hell, I don't even think I did this with an offensive lineman, where I've called friends that I knew were watching the Iowa game and say, "Did you just see that block?" He caused you to do things that you've never done before. He's a guy that ragdolls defensive ends. He can get out to the second level, stuff like that. And then as a receiver, he was the best receiving tight end in the nation last year. Noah Fant, when I did my early 2019 look ahead last May, after the draft, Noah Fant for me, just like for everybody else, was tight end 1. But he was clearly passed by Hawkinson this year. Hawkinson was already in a different world as a blocker than Fant. And this year, Hawkinson became a better receiver as well. Hawkinson was the number 1 option for Iowa from the jump, in the receiving game. Very athletic kid, ended up winning the Mackey. I just think he's a tremendous prospect. He's going to get bigger. I just think he's a world wrecker. And for a team like Jacksonville, man, not only is he going to help out Foles so much in the receiving game, but for a team that wants to play smash mouth, Hawkinson's not only going to be Nick Foles' best friend, he would also be Leonard Fournette's best friend. In general, I'm not taking tight ends this high, but TJ Hawkinson is in a different class from other tight ends that have entered the NFL in the past decade. So I'd be turning the card with his name on it.
It's a pretty compelling case, Davis. Do you think Hawkinson can go at number 7, or is that just too high for Jacksonville here?
In the first mock draft I did this year, I had Hawkinson going at 4 to the Raiders. I agree with everything that Thor said. Hawkinson is an amazing prospect. I actually think Font will be better for fantasy football because he's never going to be asked to block. I think he had 40 blocking snaps this last year at Iowa. He's just going to be a receiver right away. But for real football purposes, I have no issue with Hawkinson going here at 7 to the Jaguars. And I do think he will have a marked improvement factor, basically, for the Jacksonville Jaguars offense.
All right, we got consensus. TJ Hawkinson, tight end, going number 7 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That puts the Lions on the clock right now, Davis, and it's just hard for me to figure out what they're going to do. Like, what do the Lions need? They seem just completely average almost everywhere.
Yeah, they're a very mediocre team, not a team that's fun to watch play football, but I have them drafting Greedy Williams to play across from Darius Slay.
Good name.
Great name. Having 2 very elite cornerbacks is sort of like what every defensive coordinator wishes they had, because you can just do so much stuff if you're allowed to segment off those 2 parts of the field to 2 guys, and you have the other 9 guys to work the middle of the field. So I think Greedy Williams is I don't know if he would end up going this high, but I do think it is a really interesting selection here for the Lions because Greedy Williams is crazy good. He is very good.
What do you make of that, Thor? Because that is a very interesting scenario that Davis brings up, just putting him on the other side of Slay. You can still get Slay to take away the overall number 1s, and then you can kind of use Greedy Williams to do whatever you want to shut down that side of the field. Does it make sense for the Lions here?
Yeah, so Greedy is my cornerback 1. So in terms of that, yeah, I definitely agree. And the other point I'd make on this is the scenario that we just outlined is the nightmare scenario for the Lions. The Lions, when the Giants come on the clock, they are watching the television just praying that they take Dwayne Haskins. Because for the Lions, if I'm the Lions, the 2 guys I want here that I could realistically get are Montez Sweat and TJ Hawkinson. And so you're just praying that the Giants go a different direction. So one of the 2 guys is going to fall down here. In this scenario, they're kind of caught here. They can't go either way. I think I'd be trying to trade down. But, if they're stuck here, defensive back is such a need area. Do I agree that Greedy is is a number 8 prospect in the draft? Probably not. He's probably going to be, closer to, 15 to 18 kind of range for me. However, it is a very pressing need. And they've had their worst case scenario here. I don't know if are you going to reach for a guy like Brian Burns, who's a very good pass rusher but can't defend against the run. I don't know. You're not going to take a receiver here. You're not going to take a tight end either. You're not going to audible the fans. He's not a top 10 prospect. So yeah, I mean, I think we're sort of stuck here if we're the Lions, unless we wanted to go Devin White would be the only other name that I would toss out.
All right, so the Bills are up now, the first of their 10 picks at number 9. Obviously, they got Josh Allen last year's draft. There's rumblings that this could be a receiver. I don't know if Buffalo's going to get that flashy with how weird their offense is. You might as well just build up your defense and hope to play some lower scoring games. Hopefully the elements help you a little bit, and then Josh Allen can do that thing where he runs around the backfield for like 18 seconds and makes a play happen. But Thor, where do you see them going here?
This is a very easy pick, and I think Davis knows where I'm going with this. We are taking Houston defensive tackle Ed Oliver.
Easy pick.
It's
easy
so
pick.
easy.
So we can just lock in Ed Oliver right here?
Yeah,
Done.
this is Buffalo Bills fans' dreams come true. If they get Ed Oliver at 9, they're running naked in the Buffalo streets. This is a dream scenario for them.
You got a very faint yay from behind the camera. So Thor, why Oliver? Why? Because I've heard like negative things about him from being on Twitter. So I have no idea why him.
You got to stay off Twitter. Those people. Interior penetration is king in the NFL, and this is the guy.
Hey, man, not just in the NFL, in day-to-day life.
Exactly. Oliver, I'm a guy from Minneapolis, grew up a Vikings fan. He's a guy that reminds me a lot of John Randall, maybe even a more twitched up version of him. And I'm going to tell you, Pat, why you're hearing all that negative stuff on Twitter. It's a lot of people who watch film outside of context or don't watch film at all. And with Ed Oliver, you really had to know the context of his situation. First of all, his coaching staff at Houston was an absolute abomination, a joke. Major Applewhite was there for 2 years after taking over for Tom Herman. He was so bad that he got fired after this past season, despite making a bowl game in both of his seasons, and they sort of purged the staff. The way that they misused Ed Oliver, it's really sad. It was a shame. They just sort of wasted his talent. What they had was a 3-4 system. They played Oliver at zero tech. And basically what the Houston coaching staff decided to do was Oliver is such a transcendent interior rusher that we're just going to have him be our entire pass rush as a team. And so they would drop 8 guys, on most passing downs, just flood the intermediate sector. They wouldn't blitz. And so the offense would always have 5-on-3, 6-on-3, and sometimes heck, even 7-on-3 blocking advantages. And, Houston's edge rushers were nothing to write home about, guys that, won't be playing in the NFL. And so the opposing teams, we're talking in the G5 here, right? Like, Oliver played at Houston in the AAC. So these teams, Tulsa and Tulane and all these different teams, they would just throw all the extra bodies at Oliver. So every single passing down, Oliver's having to take on double teams, triple teams, all this kind of stuff. Ed Oliver ended up with something like 180 more snaps over the past 3 years in college at the zero technique position than any other player in this class. I think the next highest was a San Jose State nose tackle named Boogie Roberts, who's more like, interior defensive lineman, like 35 in this class. So it was just such a tragic misuse of Ed Oliver's talent. That's why his counting stats are down. And that's why draft Twitter, some of them that haven't watched the games, that's why they're lower on him.
Davis, Denver is on the clock at number 10. Dwayne Haskins is still on the board here. Drew Lock is still on the board. Does John Elway pull the trigger on a QB?
Have you met John Elway? Elway's not taking. He's not taking Haskins, bro. He's got
Flacco. He's got the future covered.
He's taking Drew Lock. I don't like the pick. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. I don't think that Drew Lock I don't even know if he can get to the Jay Cutler ceiling that Thor was talking about. I like Greer more. I would rather take a developmental quarterback, but I do think that if Drew Lock is sitting there at 10, there seems to be some smoke coming from the Denver camp in the Drew Lock direction. So while I don't necessarily think this is a good pick, I do think that if he's there, Denver will want to take him at 10.
What do you think, Thor?
This is a really hard one for me because I can't decide if John Elway is a huge moron or if in this case he's trying to be like smarter than a fox or whatever. I was not in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, but I had a whole bunch of buddies that were, and they all recounted me to the same thing, which is that, John Elway was basically walking up and down the sidelines telling everyone, he loved Drew Lock. So he's either the dumbest guy in the room or the smartest guy in the room, because everyone in the draft media has known from the jump, supposedly, that John Elway loves Drew Lock, which obviously if you're at the poker table, you don't get your 2 cards when you're playing Hold'em and pick them up and show them to the rest of the table. So again, that's my only thing where I'm like, what is he? Does he like a different quarterback, or does he not like a quarterback at all? And he's just sort of tossing that out there. But provisionally, I would agree with Davis. It does make some sense. He is the type of quarterback that Elway would like. And I also agree with Davis that I don't like Drew Lock at all. I've been saying this for over a year. He's a guy who throughout his career really, really struggled against good teams. He shredded every terrible team that Missouri played. He shredded the Idahos of the world and the Yukons of the world and the Southwest Missouri States of the world, the Arkansas of the world, teams like that. But whenever he played good teams, it was just struggle city. In fact, the only good game he might have had against a good defense in college might have been the regular season finale this year against Florida. Some of the other games, his stats were okay, like 2017 against Georgia, but you take too long Emmanuel Hall touchdowns out of there, the stat line goes to being crappy again. His TDINT ratio against Power 5 bowl teams and Group of 5 teams that finished with 9 or more wins was almost even. And all of his stats just cratered. This does not happen with other first-round quarterbacks, because I saw a lot of blowback when I was making this argument on Twitter, with some of these guys. And so, I went through some of the other quarterbacks and said, no, it's not like that. Pat Mahomes, for instance, you run the numbers on him and the splits of Pat Mahomes at Texas Tech against good teams, good defenses, and bad defenses. Pat Mahomes actually played slightly better against the better teams than he did against the crappy teams, whereas the game just fell out of out the floor with Drew Lock in those scenarios. So there's a lot of confusion for me with this pick. There's a lot of different things I'm thinking, but yeah, I guess I would say Lock unless we're going to go the linebacker there with White.
All right, yeah, let's give Denver Drew Lock. We seem to agree on that. So if you Mizzou fans are triggered out there, remember, at Thor KU on Twitter, at Davis Mattek on Twitter, go online, bully them, tell them how upset you are, and we'll see how it all works out. Next pick, Davis, Cincinnati is here. Could they sneaky take a quarterback? Because I'm thinking in the next few picks, you have Cincinnati and you have Miami. It feels like they could go pivot.
So did you side with me or with Thor on Devin White? Is Devin White still on the board?
Devin White's still on the board.
Devin White is still on the board here.
Devin White is who I have the Bengals taking.
All right, Thor.
He is the best linebacker in this class, and the Bengals they need that, and I don't think they're going to take an offensive lineman here.
Do you agree, Thor?
Yeah, listen, I would love that pick because going into this draft, you cannot expect that he's going to be there, and so if he did, the Bengals are another team where, some would argue that they could use a quarterback. But again, for me, I'm deferring that need until next year and just praying that one of these, high-end defensive talents, and we have several in this class, but if quarterbacks aren't going above them, they're not going to get down here. And so the Bengals are just praying. I would assume that 2 quarterbacks go above them unless they're going to do something weird, because we have been hearing some weird stuff, with regards to Daniel Jones. And then I also think that there is at least one team out there that wants Dwayne Haskins to fall. I mentioned some of this stuff before with the Giants, but Dwayne Haskins is not a media creation. I think that is a plan from one of these teams that's trying to get him to fall down the board and create this narrative that the NFL is lower on him. So, with all that being said, I think that Devin White would absolutely be the smartest pick for the Bengals there. So I will co-sign that one.
All right, Devin White, number 11 to Cincinnati. Green Bay on the clock at number 12. Thor will go to you. Is this a spot for one of these receivers with a flashy name, or do we just go edge rusher here for the Packers?
I think we're gonna go edge rusher. I'm gonna take Brian Burns here. Going back to what I was saying about his game before, with the NFL being so pass happy, and that being such a huge part of the game, Brian Burns, just in terms of that metric, is one of the best that we've seen come out in the past 5 years. In terms of his spark percentile, he's just about as good as you can get. Tremendously explosive, tremendously twitchy. And he's been developing his pass rushing moves in recent years, which I think is really cool because he's so physically gifted. He's got that vaunted spin move, so he would just be abusing all these ACC tackles with speed outside. You saw early in his career, he didn't really know what he was doing, as a freshman. And so he'd basically just try to beat you around the edge, run around you or whatever. And then, he started to figure out, oh, these guys are going to try to take that away by sort of leaning back and, taking an exaggerated first step to the outside. And so what he started to do was fake it. And then he would spin back inside and, these guys would just whiff on him. And he's continued to add more moves. He needs to continue to add more moves because that's basically, I mean, he can't really do anything else, which is why, for me, I have Montez Sweat a little bit above him. In terms of the run game, he's just never going to quite be there, even though he has shown more willingness, in like last year and stuff. Like he would try to set the edge and stuff, but that's just never going to, and obviously he can run people down. You're not going to beat Brian Burns to the edge or whatever. But when offensive linemen get their hands on him in the run game, I mean, he's getting mauled. But, again, in terms of pass rush, this is the guy. So, if I'm the Packers here, I think I'm shooting for upside there because we have another pick later on that we could do some stuff with. So let's go and get, with the 3 edge rushers already gone, let's make sure that we get a stud there.
Davis, where do you see the Packers going?
I actually think that the first move of the new regime in Green Bay, what they're going to do is they're going to take an offensive player. So I think that Noah Fant is in play here. I also think that a wide receiver is in play here. I have them selecting N'Keal Harry, who is my best wide receiver in the class. And I think that, if they do take an edge rusher, Brian Burns is likely to be the guy. But I think the time to maximize what's left of Aaron Rodgers has come. And I don't know if tossing out Equanimous St. Brown and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Jamon Moore across from Devontae Adams is going to get it done. I think it's time for them to spend real draft capital on a wide receiver.
First of all, if you're ever going to say Jamon Moore, you have to say it Jamon Moore because that's just a far more. It makes him seem a lot better than he actually is. So Thor, where do you see the wide receivers stacking up here? Like, how many are in play to be the first wide receiver drafted overall? Do you think?
The list is pretty small. DK remains the prohibitive favorite in Vegas. I think I'm going to agree with Davis here that to me, DK should not be the first receiver off. In fact, I've DK as the 5th receiver in this class. And I really like N'Keal Harry as well. I don't think he's going to go this high. But I wouldn't argue too hardly with it. I have N'Keal as wide receiver 2. I have Hakeem Butler, who is a very divisive and polarizing prospect. He is my wide receiver 1. So I can definitely see that, them going a direction like that, maybe going Fant as well. But yeah, it is interesting, and you look at the way the board plays, you try to look at it like that from the team perspective, especially with, the Packers are going to be coming up here later in the round. I just think the shelf drops out there from the edge class a little bit where, at the top, it's so good. And then really quickly, you lose it. I mean, after Burns and Clellan Ferrell, with Gary off the board, I mean, the bottom sort of falls out on this edge class. And so I think it's a thing where if early on especially Rashawn Gary, if you hear the name Rashawn Gary in the top 10, I think teams that are in, that like 11 to 20, 225 range that need an edge rusher, want an edge rusher. I think they're going to start to not to use the pun on Montez Sweat's name, but I think they're going to start to sweat a little bit because once Burns and Ferrell go off the board, then you might have to wait unless you want to, pull the you want to roll the dice on like a Jalen Ferguson or a Chase Winovich or, a guy like that, especially because Ja'Kai Polite's his stock is just absolutely cratered, during the pre-draft process. So that's how I would see that. For me right now, the value for receiver, it just wouldn't quite be there because at 30, I know that some of those guys are going to be there, whether it's Harry, whether it's Butler, probably not going to be DK, but I wouldn't care. Go ahead. Somebody else take them. Hollywood Brown, or heck, AJ Brown or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that would be the way that I would see it. But listen, if they want to go receiver here, I would certainly understand that as well. For sure.
Well, mock drafts are supposed to be fun. Let's go with N'Keal Harry here. And the Packers end up making a splash, leaving a bunch of players for the Dolphins, Davis, to take. Is this where they would plunge on a quarterback if Haskins was still available?
No, I don't think they're interested in grabbing any of these guys. I think they want to wait and have the number one pick next year. I actually have them taking Thor's boy, Brian Burns here, because when you're tanking, you should just be trying to get guys who are going to hold value for 3 or 4 or 5 years, which I think Brian Burns can be a good edge rusher for them for the next 5 years.
So Thor, we have Burns still on the board, Farrell still on the board, we have Polite still on the board. Where do you think the Dolphins might go with this pick?
This is another really hard one because, again, a month ago or so, there's no way that they could have, predicted or foreseen that Haskins is going to be on the board. So, you do wonder, would that change the thinking at all? However, I do agree with Davis's read of the tea leaves on this. And also I agree philosophically that is the correct decision. If I was the Dolphins, I would absolutely tank this season. I made this point on that show that we recorded earlier this week of like, tank the thing. I mean, it's an unpopular word to say in the NFL. Obviously, you can't tell your fans that, but Mr. Stephen Ross, I think he basically said that, when the reporters were asking him, like, man, how long is this rebuild going to take? You have to look at a quarterback, right? And he was saying, like, everyone's got to be patient. We need 2 or 3 years or whatever. So reading into those comments, you would assume that receiver isn't what they're targeting. However, they could be another smokescreen team as well. I think the other position here that they might look at if they didn't go that way, just to toss someone else out, would be offensive line. And the fact that, like, Jonah Williams is here, might incentivize them to go that way. So I think, I'll toss out Jonah just as just as another sort of option for you. But yeah, I would definitely agree with the Burns thing. Again, same point I made last time is just that the bottom is going to fall out of the edge class real quick.
All right, so let's go with Brian Burns to the Miami Dolphins. So Thor, we'll go back to you with Atlanta with the next pick.
Sure. So with this next pick, Atlanta's a team that, man, they could really use an interior defensive lineman. I think, their best case scenario would be, the scenario where sort of Ed Oliver plummets down the board. I don't think that's very likely to happen. They could also use an interior lineman. And so, since last time we gave Burns to the Dolphins, I'm going to toss out Jonah here. It's another thing where the Falcons could not have assumed that he was going to get down here. And maybe they had, pie in the sky hopes that, again, like a guy like Oliver could get down here with the other interior defensive linemen at this spot. The other guys that you'd be thinking about as your options. I love Jerry Tillery, but I don't think the NFL views this as his range quite yet. And then Jeffrey Simmons is also a kid that I really like. He's going to require if not a full red shirt because of his torn ACL, then at least a half red shirt. He tore it in February, so he's not going to be ready right away. So I think just because of value and the fact that at this point you can pick any offensive lineman on the board, they have interior issues, but if Jonah, you can kick them outside later on. I would go Jonah Williams here.
What do you make of it, Davis? Do you think this is where we finally see an offensive lineman enter the draft?
I do like that pick. I think it would be more fun if the Falcons took an offensive skill position player. So I have them taking Noah Fant, who I do think he is the second best real football tight end in the class, but I do think he is an incredible receiving tight end, and I think he would make Matt Ryan and Julio Jones's life a little bit easier. And I just love the fit, basically. I just think he would be really good in the Steve Sarkisian West Coast offense, and really he would fit with any NFL team, but I like Font here.
So basically, I think I'm going to go with after taking Calvin Ridley in the first round last year, they might be overextended on first round skill position picks. So Jonah Williams, an offensive lineman, seems like it's a bit demure. It's kind of nice for the Atlanta Falcons. So we'll go with them, putting Washington on the clock at 15. Davis, where do you see the Redskins going with their pick? Because they're going to be pretty terrible.
So this is where I have Haskins going. I think this is where it actually makes sense, because all the stuff we've been hearing for the last couple months or weeks really is that the NFL is not as high on Dwayne Haskins as a lot of us on Twitter are, but Washington is going to be a really bad team. And they're going to be a really bad team for a while because they owe someone who might lose their leg like $28 million dead money per year for the next 2 years. So taking a rookie quarterback, locking him into that contract for the next 5 years is a really intelligent decision for them to make. And I think Haskins is really good. I think that if they're smart with the way they manage their cap, they can maybe build a competitive team 2 years from now, and their offensive line is actually not horrible. So I don't think that Haskins would just get murdered his first year playing. So I actually think this is a situation that makes some sense.
I think Haskins does make a lot of sense. And to stat boy you, Davis, Sark is out as Atlanta OC.
Oh,
it's Dick Cutter.
I didn't know.
Dick Cutter's the man there now. So I mean, we saw how
still a West Coast offense.
So Thor, what do you think? Do you think this is a spot for Haskins if he's still available and the Skins are on the clock?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I really don't have anything to add. Again, there's just no way that you could have foreseen that Haskins would be down here. Again, I mean, even a couple weeks ago. And so yeah, if I'm Washington, this seems like a best case scenario. I think Washington is that sleeper team to keep an eye on that might like Daniel Jones. Because there's got to be teams here in the middle of the first round that like Daniel Jones. The smoke is just too much on that kid. And it's not just smoke that started up recently. I mean, the NFL is like Daniel Jones for a really long time. However, with Dwayne Haskins having plummeted down the board, you really don't have an option. Gruden is a guy that I think in general, the way that they run their offense is where, they would be the kind of team that would overdraft Daniel Jones just because he fits that offense a bit more. He's a mobile quarterback who's very good in the short to intermediate sector, whereas, Haskins is the guy with the arm who runs like the field is made of pudding and stuff like that. But I think, if a talent like that falls down here and you have such a huge need at the spot, I think you pull the trigger here and you just work around it. You work around his skill set, and modify your offense as needed.
All right, let's go to Carolina. First of 7 picks at number 16. There's a bunch of decent edge rushers still kind of on the board here, Thor. Is that where Carolina goes?
Not for me. With Burns off the board, I think I go offensive line here. I think it's a desperate need for Carolina. And I'm going to go with Andre Dillard here. I think it would be a perfect pick for them. Cam Newton, a guy who's been, hit a ton in the NFL. And now he gets one of the better pass blocking left tackle prospects that's come out in a really long time. Dillard was a kid who went into college where he was just completely overlooked. The only other FBS offer he got was from Idaho, another local school there. And then Idaho, went down to the FCS a year or two later. And so Dillard would have played in the FCS had Wazoo not given him a scholarship offer. In high school, Dillard was seen as this really good mauling run blocker who needed to work on his pass blocking. And so he goes, to Air Raid Yoda, the guy who invented Cliff Kingsbury and Mike Leach, and just got a billion pass pro reps. And it's not just in, live action. We've seen the Pro Football Focus stat where they're talking about pass pro reps at left tackle, the last, 3 years or whatever. And Dillard is just so far and away ahead of every single other person on that list, but it's also in practice. His first year when he did not play, he was also a left tackle, in practice at Wazoo. And then he was also a left tackle throughout high school. That's this kid to me, I had this take on Twitter, but he is to me the Pat Mahomes of left tackle prospects. I think he's a guy that some people are going to miss on because of the system. They're going to nitpick him because of the thing of like this idea that he can't run block. That's absurd. He can absolutely run block. The reason that people say that is because, he's in this Wazoo offense. You got to see him in pass pro, all the time. Whereas in run blocking, they have those, 5-foot splits or whatever. And when they run the ball, when they gave the ball to James Williams every 5 plays or whatever, it was just as a change of pace kind of a thing or whatever. And so, it's a different kind of a system, but he excelled at run blocking. He was just fine there. And I think especially, if he gets to his own team, I think would probably be the best thing. I think the Vikings would be, that is the perfect fit for Andre Dillard, in terms of system. But, I think you get down here, Carolina's looking at the board here, and with Jonah Williams having gone off the board 2 picks ago, I think you got to go another way. I think Juwan Taylor is a guy that they would think that would, fit them or whatever. But I think just to do a solid to Cam Newton, I'm going to give them Andre Dillard, the left tackle.
Is that case compelling enough for you, Davis?
Andre Dillard is the no-brainer decision here. I've done 2 mock drafts. Andre Dillard to Carolina at this pick was in both of them. I just think it is so logical and so needed for the Panthers offense that it's just an easy pick for them to make.
All right, Andre Dillard to the Panthers at number 16. We are now going into speed round for the second half of the draft, so we don't make this like an 8-hour show. So very quickly, Davis, the Giants, back on the clock at number 17. What do they do?
Jonah Williams, offensive tackle.
Already gone.
Already gone. Cody Ford, offensive lineman.
All right, Thor, what do you think?
I think I'd be down with Cody Ford. You know, in the Roto World show, Chris Sims had the that pick for the Panthers, and he took Ford there, which allowed Dillard to drop down there to the Vikings. I was able to take him there, but yeah, with Ford still being on the board, I think I'm down with that, especially because of the predilections we were talking about the decision maker in that building.
All right, so Ford goes to the New York Giants. Those Vikings that you've been talking about right now, Thor, are on the clock. We've now seen 3 offensive linemen just go boom, 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 right off the board. So what do they do?
Yeah, so the way that this scenario has gone is the worst case scenario for the Vikings. Dillard is off the board, Jonah Williams is off the board, and Cody Ford is a kid that they like a lot. I live in Minneapolis, and I'm friends with a lot of reporters here. People around there, and Cody Ford is just a guy. It's a name that has popped up over and over and over and over again. The Vikings have really looked into him. He's a guy that I think would fit pretty well. I think Dillard is the best fit. The Vikings have a desperate need for offensive line. They have to take an offensive lineman here unless something crazy happens with one of the 3 it would have to be, I think, Oliver that would drop down the board to dissuade them from this. I think it has to be offensive line. Last year it had to be offensive line. I thought with the first 2 picks, they wanted Frank Ragnow. And Ragnow ends up, getting plucked by the Lions. And I think the Vikings panicked, Will Hernandez would have been the guy there at the end of the first round, if they were going to take a lineman, but they got a little stubborn because he's not a scheme fit for them. It's being a zone team or whatever. So for that reason, with the offensive line still being bad, and because I know that they are, going back to the word fetishize, they really fetishize the mobile offensive linemen that are fits, for the zone scheme. And it's going to be even more so now that Gary Kubiak is there. So I don't think that I can take Juwan Taylor, even though I would say that probably at this point he is the best, just in terms of raw skill, the guy we could get here. I'm going to go with a pure zone guy and a stud zone guy in Chris Lindstrom from Boston College. A guy who had a 97th percentile spark score, just a tremendous mover. He is getting to any spot he wants before you. He's a guy who gets out to the second level and takes out linebackers. Delvin Cook's game is played down, the past year. Kirk Cousins, obviously, as well, because of that offensive line. We want Dillard here. That's the guy we would prefer. Jonah Williams would probably be 2, and Ford would probably be 3. I just don't think that Taylor is a fit for them philosophically. And so I think here what and the hole is at guard, right? Like if they took Dillard, what they would do is move Reef inside. They keep Brian O'Neill at right tackle. But in this scenario, you just keep them there. You put Lindstrom in the guard spot across from the Josh Klein fella, and you roll it forward with that. And then next year, hopefully, that's when you can get your either left tackle or right tackle, because it appears as though Brian O'Neill, whenever they want, is going to be able to play left tackle. So I'm going to go with Lindstrom here.
All right, Davis, what we're going to do is just alternate picks from this point on. So Lindstrom's going to be the Vikings pick. Who do you got for Tennessee?
Hakeem Butler. That offense was so painful to watch last year, and sending out Taywan Taylor out there to play as a boundary wide receiver, it's not going to be any good. I don't think that Adam Humphries is set to be a boundary wide receiver, so they need someone opposite Corey Davis. Hakeem Butler is, I think he's a crazy good talent. He had one of the most impressive final seasons at Iowa State that any of us have ever seen. He's pretty divisive amongst the draft community, but I really like the fit here in trying to create an environment that is welcoming for Marcus Mariota.
Okay, so we're taking a wide receiver at number 19 to the Titans. Thor, who do you think the Steelers are going to get at number 20?
So right now you could go a couple different ways. Clelin Ferrell is that guy who's still sticking out there. The one last, really good edge rushing prospect. They do need front seven help. Jerry Tillery be another guy you look at. You could do the thing where you redshirt Simmons. I think Simmons could turn into one of the better players in this class in short order. I think though, Juwan Taylor has fallen down the board quite a bit. And I think this would be a scenario where if he's fallen down this far, I think the Steelers might just have to say, well, we would if we had our druthers take the front seven, but the guys that we were sort of zeroing in on, they've gone here, and Juwan Taylor, might be that last sort of top 15 consensus, top 15 overall type prospect. So I might audible here. Receiver, would be another position that you'd look at, but this class is so deep with receivers, I think, whereas in the top, I'm not as confident with it. So I think that's the way that I would go here.
All right, Juwan Taylor to the Steelers. And as we know, the Steelers are probably just going to find some stud receiver in the 7th round anyway, so it's not going to make a difference. So Davis, up next, we have Seattle, the first of their 4 picks in this draft at 21. Are they just going to do something stupid like take a running back and then bench him again?
No, only one pick for them to make here. Juan Thornhill, the safety from Virginia. He is the most sparky defensive back in the entire class. They need to fill the safety hole that Earl Thomas has left. We know they love to take defensive backs. We know the Seattle organization really treasures spark score. I feel very good about Thornhill going there at 21.
All right, Juan Thornhill to the Seahawks at number 21. That puts Baltimore on the board, first of 8 picks. Thor, is this a receiver destination for the Ravens?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you definitely have to look at it like that, and it's got to be a very specific kind of receiver, right? Because I love Lamar Jackson, but we got to get players that will complement Lamar, complement his game. Accuracy is always to an extent going to be an issue. You're never going to be Drew Brees or whatever. So I'd love a guy that has a huge catch radius. The issue for me here is that the 2 guys that I think would be great fits with Lamar in his game, it's Hakeem Butler and it's N'Keal Harry. I just don't think that Hollywood Brown is a fit for him because you need accuracy, in the intermediate sector for Hollywood. AJ Brown, it might be a little too early, and DK Metcalf, I don't think that's a fit either because DK is not we never saw DK win in the intermediate sector at Ole Miss. He didn't even have 70 catches in his career in an air raid system. Right now, the one thing we know he can do is run deep and take the top off the defense. So even though, if heading in, if I'm the Ravens, I'm gunning for a receiver, but the 2 ones that I want are off the board here. So I have to audible. I'm going to take the last good edge rusher out here. I'm going to take Clelin Ferrell and sort of, close the deck on that one. So that I'm going to go that direction.
All right, Ferrell to the Ravens, Texans first of 7 picks, Davis at number 23. They got options here. Where are they going?
I don't really think they have options. They have a stud quarterback who just gets put on his back every play. They have to take an offensive lineman, and I have them taking Dalton Risner, the offensive lineman from Kansas State. He was one of the absolute standouts at the Senior Bowl. Didn't get a ton of pass blocking reps because he played at Kansas State, so he's sort of a late rising type of prospect. But I think he is a pretty good fit here, even if he is a little bit overdrafted just because he's being drafted for need.
All right, we had Williams going to the Raiders at number 4 overall, Thor. They're now back on the clock. They have another pick after this. So how do they play this one onto the other, and how does the first pick affect what they do here?
Yeah, you took care of the one need. You got a top end, of the past decade type interior guy. I think with this pick, you do have some options. We talked earlier about the different positions they could be looking for later on. I think right now, with another guy who's fallen down the board, I'm going to go with Devin Bush. A guy who could go, Devin Bush could go top 12 or heck, he could go top 10. He's fallen down the board here. Very good linebacker. He's a new age type linebacker. His dad was a safety, got drafted by the Falcons in the first round, won a Super Bowl with Kurt Warner in the Rams in the late 90s. And Devin Bush Jr. was a kid coming out that we thought was going to play safety, when he signed with Michigan as a ballyhooed prospect. And they quickly, decided, well, I mean, this kid's sort of just a new age type chess piece. Let's move him to defense. And Don Brown, the defensive coordinator there, had all sorts of fun with Devin Bush the last couple of years. So I think he's a guy that, if the Raiders coming into this draft, they cannot expect that Devin Bush would be there. But because he is, I think you got to pull the trigger.
All right, so Devin Bush to Oakland. They'll pick once again a little bit later on. Philadelphia, Davis, first of 7 picks at number 25. Who are the Eagles taking?
It's boring, but they have a real need at safety as well. A lot of people actually have Chauncey Gardner Johnson as the top safety in the class over Thornhill. He's from Florida. They are missing their starting safety from last year, Corey Graham. Gardner Johnson, pretty athletic, pretty good fit. I don't have much more to say than that. They just need a safety. They need defensive backs. So they're going to fill that hole with this pick.
Easy enough. Indianapolis, number 26 on the clock. Thor. What do they do here? Do they take an offensive playmaker, bolster that offense, and let Andrew Luck go crazy?
You know what? I think right here, and I'm actually interested to hear what Davis has to say about this. I think this could be the spot for Jeffrey Simmons. And again, Jeffrey Simmons is a kid who, if he had not torn the ACL and he didn't have, an off-field issue, which is troubling, although I think when you know the context of what happened in that situation, it becomes a bit less so, especially when you consider the kid that Jeffrey Simmons turned out to be at Mississippi State. He was an honor roll kid. Mississippi State coaches and his teammates talked about him as a leader. He was a guy who went around and talked to kids, about, the mistakes he made and how to try to avoid those. He's become a real leader. He's become a really good kid. I think he was determined going into college after that incident to turn himself into some, a difference maker in the world. And so, I've been thinking about where could he go, because I do not think you can let a guy that is that talented fall out of the first round. And so I think there's going to be a team here at the end of the first that's just going to realize, well, he tore the ACL in February. We might get him back here in November or December, something like that. He's going to help out. And then in the future, I mean, heck, Simmons might be, absolutely could be one of the top 10 players in this class. He might be, turn out to be one of the 5 best players in this class. So I just think right now at this point, I think he would make a ton of sense.
Yeah, I think that actually makes a lot of sense for the Colts. Davis, Oakland is next on the clock, the third of their 3 picks. And what do you make of Simmons there to Indianapolis?
I totally buy Thor's logic. I did not have them making that selection in either of my mocks, but I do buy it. I have the Raiders doing something squirrely here, taking a guy in most people's 50s, but Ben Banagoof is an edge from TCU, who is the most sparky, the most athletic edge rusher of the class. And he actually had 17 sacks his 2 seasons at TCU. So it's not like he is bad. And the Raiders, by the way, had 13 sacks total last year. They need some pressure coming in. So I think this pick actually makes a little bit of sense with all the elite edges gone.
All right, so we finally got rid of all the Raiders' 3 picks. The Chargers are up now, Thor. Who will Los Angeles take here?
Yeah, I mean, when they're looking at their pick, I think, assuming that Devin Bush doesn't fall down here, I think you're looking either the trenches or defensive back. So if I'm them, I'm just looking at the board, what trench guys have fallen down, what defensive back guys have fallen down. I think with this pick, if it's me, I'm going Jerry Tillery. I think Jerry Tillery is an absolute stud. And I think, the draft community at large has sort of missed just how good he is. And a part of the reason why is because I was talking about Ed Oliver and how he was misused earlier. Tillery was misused throughout his career up until last season. He was another guy that was used, as a nose tackle, a zero tech type guy. And he sort of rebelled against it. Tillery admittedly had immaturity issues. There was a game in 2016 against USC where he stepped on a couple kids, and he was in Brian Kelly's doghouse for a while. One of my buddies is a Notre Dame beat writer and, basically suggested to me that the reason that Tillery was playing out of position up until 2018 was because, both for the coaches to send him a message and also because they felt at that time like they couldn't trust him, to be sort of that crux or that fulcrum of their defensive front. Last year, they put him there because in 2017, even though he's playing out of position, he really leveled up. And we started to see his physical skills come out. This is a guy who tested in the 85th percentile, very, very gifted kid. So they put him at 3-tech this year, and he just absolutely went off, particularly earlier in the season. He ends up tearing a labrum, and we didn't even know this. He tore the labrum like in week 4 or something. And he played the last 8 or 9 games with a torn labrum. He didn't complain about it to anyone. Nobody knew. He didn't tell the coaches or nothing. Plays the rest of the season. He ends up tying Quinnen Williams. Get this. Ends up tying Quinnen Williams for the highest pass rushing grade last year of interior defensive lineman in the country, I should say. Despite the fact that he played 3 quarters or more of the season with this torn labrum. He did not get that fixed, by the way, until after the season or whatever. Like they didn't even find out about it until he went home before the playoff game. His mom, who is a nurse, sees him like wincing, and tells him like, you got to go in and get that checked out. They diagnose the labrum, and then his mom's like, well, obviously you can't play, Jeffrey, in the playoff game. And Tillery was like, Mom, this is Notre Dame. Like, this is a playoff game. I will be playing in that game. And so, Will Greer and all these different guys who ducked bowl games, even though they didn't have injuries. Tillery played most of the season with a torn labrum, was an absolute stud. And then he tested as well. A lot of these guys, they ducked the testing as well. Tillery tested in the 84th percentile with this stuff, have been carried around this bum limb for all that time. I think he's an even better athlete than that. Just incredibly, productive in there. He's incredibly disruptive. And so I would go Jerry Tillery. I think it'd be a slam dunk pick this late.
Love it. Jerry Tillery to the Chargers at number 28. That puts Kansas City on the clock. Davis, is this where Josh Jacobs goes to screw over your prediction that Damian Williams will be a top 5 fantasy running back?
If the Kansas City Chiefs take Josh Jacobs here, I will retire from watching football. I won't do it anymore. I will give up.
Let me write down that time code here just very quickly so I can have this queued up for draft night.
Yeah, I can't be involved with that organization anymore if they make that decision. What they should do is they should take whatever defensive back they have graded out highest on their board, because let me tell you, that secondary last year was one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my 26 years of following professional football. I have them taking Byron Murphy, the cornerback from Washington here. They need a good defensive back who can play on the outside. If Gardner Johnson was here, I think I would be fine with them taking him as well. But Byron Murphy from Washington, one of the best corners in this draft. They need cornerbacks. They need safeties desperately. So this is the pick for them to make here.
All right, the team that passes all over everyone gets passed all over. Take a defensive back. Makes sense. Thor, Green Bay's second of their first round picks from New Orleans, is here right now. So what do? This could be a spot for a pass catching tight end, I think.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of things that you did not expect to happen, I mean, we've brought up Noah Fant several times on this show already. Has not been taken. The only thing, and also DK Metcalf is still here too. I mean, so they Green Bay would be, thanking the gods. They did already take Harry earlier, which is the only complicating factor here. It's going to rule out Metcalf, and who knows? It might even rule out Fant. But in terms of doing this exercise, who else are you really going to give that? I think it would be Christian Williams or Fant, but you got to go Fant here. It's such a good fit, and you didn't expect him to fall down here. So, I don't know what their feelings would be about taking 2 pass catchers in the first round, but at 130, getting Fant here, I think it's a slam dunk. I think you have to do it.
Last 2 picks, the Rams, Davis, with pick number 31. Where are they going?
They got to get another interior defensive lineman. So they got to take Christian Wilkins from Clemson so they can keep running this system where Aaron Donald wrecks everything, and they just need to get more pressure on the quarterback. So Christian Wilkins from Clemson, pretty easy selection for them here, I think.
All right, last, the Super Bowl winners, the New England Patriots, number 32. Thor, you cannot say trade down, so they have to pick someone. And how happy would they be if somehow Noah Fant fell to them at this spot?
Yeah, they would be. I think they would be pretty stoked. You'd use him in that sort of like Joker role or whatever. But since he's off the board, the Packers took him. You're looking around. I mean, they could go a bunch of different ways here. I think they could be a team that likes a guy like Jalen Ferguson. A guy that everyone else has been lower on. They got Flowers out of Arkansas a few years ago because of the same reason he started to get nitpicked a little bit. But that might be too early for me. I might go Dexter Lawrence here. Just a guy that can create some disruption. You can put him in the middle there. He's going to occupy blockers. Lawrence was better in college, as a pass rusher than you would expect. It didn't show up in the counting stats, but he does create pressure. Which helps the guys around him. It helped Christian Wilkins, for instance. It helped Farrell, helped Austin Bryant, helped all those guys. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the way the board has fallen, the only other pick here that I could see would be DK Metcalf, but and we're going to have DK Metcalf falling out of the first round, I think. But I just don't see him as a New England type player because he could just turn into Cordero Patterson without the special teams value. So I think I'm going that way. Davis, do you have another idea here for the Pats at 32?
Yeah, I think they're gonna take Hollywood Brown if he gets here.
Wow.
They really need a wide receiver, and Hollywood Brown is way more a Patriots type of player than DK Metcalf is. I don't think that DK Metcalf fits what Belichick wants on film, but Brown can kind of do it all. They can move him around the formation. He can play slot. He can play outside. They might have him return punts right away. I feel very confident that if they get to 32 and Brown's there, I actually think that they take him.
I'm willing to go with Davis on this one. Let's go with Hollywood.
Hollywood Brown, the last pick of the first round in the Pat Mayo Experience mock draft. You can find all the results in the description of this podcast or video. It'll be up on DKPlaybook.com. No running backs in the first round. No DJ Metcalf. That's kind of how it broke down. Thor, can you tell everyone where they can follow you and find your work this week? Because we need to push as much traffic to you as possible.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Thorku. That's THORKU. Come to the Roto World, go to the NFL draft section. All my position deep dives are up there. I'm going to be ranking down through 400 players. And the last ones, the defensive backs and linebackers, are going to be coming out these next couple of days. Then we're going to have the top 400. Then we're going to have the mock draft. There's new draft columns every single day, so check us out there. Davis
Mattek. You can follow him on Twitter at Davis Mattek. Tell everyone where they can find all of your draft work and just work in general, and sub to the Takecast. I'll take care of that one for you because it's just an excellent podcast that people should listen to. What do you think the odds are that no running backs and no DJ Metcalf go in the first round?
The odds on that are like plus 500. Pretty sure DK Metcalf would go ahead of N'Keal Harry. It seems like NFL people like DK Metcalf more than N'Keal Harry, and Josh Jacobs was one of the 23 people who got invited to the draft green room on Thursday night for the first round of the draft. So pretty sure Josh Jacobs is going somewhere there and well. But if you guys want to find more of my work, you can find it on rotoexperts.com. And of course, listen to the Takecast. You can listen to that wherever you find podcasts.
I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at the PME, THEPME. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio version podcast, completely free. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Leave a 5-star review. After you subscribe, leave your DraftKings handle in the review, plus something nice, nothing negative, something nice, and you are in a draw for 20 DK bucks. Just like if you smash the like button for this video, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Tell me, for your favorite team, what's your optimal pick at their draft slot? Something realistic, not out of the realm of possibility, but the best case scenario for your favorite team. All right? Then you'll be in a draw for 20 DK bucks as well. Check out the full mock draft on DKPlaybook.com. We'll have more draft coverage from DraftKings coming at you all week. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!